Your Highness, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Art Basel's inaugural Talks program here in Qatar. My name is Colin Milliard, I'm Art Basel's executive editor and the global lead for the Conversations program.
And I'm Jelena Trkulja, senior advisor for cultural and academic affairs at Qatar Museums and editorial director of Qatar Creates Talks. It's a real pleasure to welcome you all here today in Doha and to open this program together.
Today's program is truly unprecedented because not only the first time that we've ever put together a talks program here in Doha, but it's also the first time that we've collaborated so closely with a partner organization to bring you the most exciting voices working in the field of art and culture today.
This program is co-presented by Art Basel Conversations and Qatar Creates Talks, and it has been shaped jointly, intellectually, curatorially, and structurally.
But I cannot think of a better way to start this very special edition than with this panel, Leaders of Change, How is Patronage Shaping New Art Ecosystems? Because this panel gathers three speakers who are not only exceptional leaders, but also, in keeping with our theme, true friends. I'm therefore honored to welcome on stage Her Excellency Sheikha Al Mayassa bin Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, Chairperson, Qatar Museum, Doha Film Institute, Reach Out to Asia, Qatar Leadership Center, and co-chair of Fashion Trust Arabia. I'm also thrilled to welcome Maja Hoffmann, the founder and president of the Luma Foundation, in a panel moderated by a long-standing collaborator and friend, the artistic director at Serpentine Gallery, and Ulrich Obrist. Thank you. But before I welcome our guests and I hand over the floor, and on behalf of all of us at Art Basel, Qatar Create, QC+, QSI, and Visit Qatar, I'd like to extend our deepest thanks to all our speakers, to all of these who made this exceptional program possible, and to every one of you for being part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Colin. Thank you so much, Jelena. Good morning. May I start with a word of thanks for the honor to speak here today. Thanks to Her Excellency Sheikha Al Mayassa, to Maja Hoffmann, to Noah Horowitz, to Vincenzo De Bellis, and thanks to all of you for being here this morning. The topic is, as you could hear from Jelena and also from Colin, how is patronage shaping new ecosystems? And we could not have two more extraordinary, amazing speakers here with us today, who both have invented such incredible ecosystem. Both Her Excellency Sheikha Al Mayassa and Maja Hoffmann's philanthropy is transformative. We're going to address topics such as the economic development of cities through culture and with culture, an approach which is always artist-centered. In both cases, artists are always really the center. And of course, also a long-durational vision. The idea, as the philosopher Roman Kaczarnik said, that it's necessary today to go beyond the short-termism in our world and really think in a long-term kind of way. And maybe most importantly of all the topics, the idea of fostering community and togetherness, what makes cultural institutions today in our world more urgent than ever before. But before I ask the first questions, please give Her Excellency Sheikha Al Mayassa, Maja Hoffmann, a very, very warm welcome. I wanted to ask a first question to Your Excellency Sheikha Al Mayassa. Qatar has strategically developed a network of museums, of cultural institutions, and creative hubs in a very long-term way with a 25-year strategy in three parts. You have often spoken about culture and the creative industries as very central to economic diversification and the development of a knowledge-based society. So I wanted to ask you, how does Art Basel Qatar fit within this broader vision, and what role do you see playing in Qatar's long-term cultural and economic development?
Thank you, Hans. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for all being here. It's really a pleasure to welcome you all. Day 2 Art Basel. I hope you've all had a wonderful first day. I know there's a lot of people to thank for the success of this week, so I won't name them all. And also, I'm very honored to be with Maja on a panel because we share a lot of similarities, but also personally, I've really experienced Arles over the years and never really understood what was happening until finally her vision has been realized and continue to be evolving. And no different from Qatar. Qatar has a national vision called 2030, where culture was one of the main pillars for socioeconomic development, human development. We have always invested in culture as a means of human development. And for the longest time, I can't tell you how many art fairs came to us wanting to be here, and we never felt it was the right time. However, this is an important year for us with 50 years of Qatar National Museum, 20 years of the Qatar Museums, and we felt with the surplus of talent and the growing gallery scene we had here that it was time to bring industry to talent, because that's how we will spur the economic diversification from hydrocarbon to knowledge-based society in bringing this kind of partnership to Qatar. So as I said a few days ago, this is not your typical art fair. I hope you all have experienced it already. It's a humane art fair where engagement is more important than transaction, discourse more important than division, and curiosity more important than conviction. So I hope you've all had a chance to see the art fair, and I congratulate Wael, who's here, and Vincenzo for curating such an amazing experience and bringing in new gallerists who I've never met, and artists from our region so visible within the international scene. So that's a short answer to your very long question.
Thank you so much. And I want to ask you to tell us a bit more about this event-centered approach, and also about the idea of actually, for the first time, have an artist curate an art fair. While Shaki is here, we should give Wael a big round of applause.
So actually, it just happened to be that Wael had moved to Qatar to run the fire station, which we've transformed from a residency program into an art school. And Wael is no stranger to Qatar. He came here 10 years ago with the retrospective at Madhaf. We've been talking a lot about how to be more involved in the Qatari art scene. And so it was Vincenzo and Noah, actually, who approached me and said, we want Wael to be the artistic director. It was really the idea that came from our partners, Art Basel. And so that's a very interesting idea. Who do you have in name? Who do you have in mind? And they said, Wael Shawki. I said, that's perfect, because he's a global artist who's now become a very local artist, very invested in our local art scene. And really, I think that's the beauty of partnerships. When we are all sitting on a table, we're exchanging ideas, we're engaging in dialogue, and there is a safe space for us to critique each other, support each other, and really brainstorm all the possibilities that are available and then come to a consensus of what would make sense for us. It's a very local, regional art fair, I should say, and very different to anything else that you could have experienced. And so I can't take credit for that idea, but it came from the team, but it very much aligns with what we have done throughout the last 20 years. We've been very consistent with a long-term vision, very disciplined, ignoring the noise, and really focusing on how we can take the Arab voice globally and in all the disciplines. So I hope you felt the authenticity of this experience. I've heard really positive things last night, and I hope it continues to be a good experience for everybody.
Thank you so much. A third question about collections. Your museum program would not be possible without the depth and the strength of its collection. With the upcoming art mill and also the Lusal Museum on the horizon, we discussed this on a panel in Basel last year, and of course also the redesign of Madhaf. It seems to be an ideal moment to reflect on the approach you have of collecting. Can you tell us a little bit about Qatar's first collections and how it evolved over time and how the strategy evolved? I mean, the future is invented with the past.
Thank you so much. Actually, I'm very honored in the audience to have my mother, Her Highness Sheikha Moza, and Sheikh Hassan, who actually together, the collection of... the collection of Mathaf began. It was Sheikh Hassan bin Mohammed's collection that Qatar Foundation acquired to form the core collection of Mathaf, which since then has, I think that was bought in the mid-90s, at the same time that Sheikh Hassan's late brother, Sheikh Saud, was collecting for the Islamic Art Museum, working with my father on creating a vision for what the museums would look like, bringing IMP from retirement and creating what we see now as a Museum of Islamic Art. For those of you who hadn't had a chance, please visit. We have two amazing exhibitions, one on IMP, Life is Architecture in the Al Riwaq, a space that has been newly renovated by Rem Koolhaus. And at the fourth floor of the Museum of Islamic Art, we have a personal story of IMP and Qatar. Many of you may not know, but there was a competition with the Aga Khan. A winner was actually chosen, but the result wasn't satisfactory. And my father, who had great ambition for this country, decided to bring IMP out of retirement. So that's one exhibition you should not miss. And then there's also Empire of Light, an exhibition on Afghanistan and all the cultures and civilizations that went through. I see Guyane here, and I had no idea how influential Afghanistan was to all of Central Asia. So it's really an inspiring exhibition. And the collections, I see also Ghanem Al-Ghanem, who's one of our great gallerists, Al-Hoj Gallery. I heard somebody bought something from your gallery last night too, so congratulations. And so, you know, it's a whole ecosystem. We work with the private sector, with collectors. We have great collectors in Qatar, great private museums. We've been collecting for decades. It just shows you, my grandmother, who's almost 100 years old, she was collecting in the 60s when Qatar was a very poor country. It's in our DNA, it's in our blood, always with this notion of investing in knowledge and human development, because the collections of the past, you know, influence the future as well. We cannot ignore it. So we are both collecting historical objects, contemporary objects, modern objects, architecture, archival material, anything that we feel is relevant to us and the evolution of this nation towards a knowledge-based economy.
Thank you so much. And this is a wonderful transition to Luma, Arles, to Maja, because that's another great example for an ecosystem growing over time in a very long durational way. Luma Arles is, of course, also a place of collections. It's a place of exhibitions, but it's also a laboratory. It's about knowledge production. There is Atelier Luma. You said, Maja, that it's very much about also mapping the region, about staying local at the same time, being global. Can you tell us about the vision of the Luma Arles ecosystem?
First, let me say hello, and thank you for having me here and for having had the idea of inviting me. Second, I realize there is not one single word of what you said, Sheikha, that I would not underwrite completely. This is really completely on our alley, on our way of thinking, and it's amazing to see that it is possible to think alike like this from different places in the world. So this is all very fascinating. And then I know you want to speak about Luma and Arles, but I still would like to speak a little about myself and saying that I'm not a new visitor here. I've been visiting since years. I first came for a conference that I think was in 2008, if it's possible. I'm always forgetting the numbers. I sometimes say I would never do anything if I would think only with the numbers. But I think it has the evolution since then has been incredible. And so I'm very happy to be able to witness this. During that time in Arles, we were also building a project that first encountered, on the contrary of here maybe, and that's the big difference between our project, first encountered rejection from not the people, but more from the people in power. The people in power in France sit more in France, in Paris, than they sit in the south, which is more called provincial. And so we had to defend this project several years in a row, refile, redo, and it was a matter of tenacity. I don't know if this word exists in English. It was really a matter that made us more resilient in wanting really to to create what we had in mind. Because you say, my vision, of course it's never the vision of an only person. It is just trying to get the vibes of what is needed in the time that you do things that gives you the strength to go all the way. And that's really what it is. It's this ethic feeling for a greater good from within that gives you the strength to go all the way. So on the way, we met all the artists. On the way, we met all the thinkers. We created a think tank, of which Hans Ulrich is part, and of which also Tom Eccles is part, who is here working on the quadrennial, and of whom artists are part, like Philippe Parreno, Liam Gillick, and a brilliant curator called Beatrix Roof, whom I'm sure you also know, Sheikh. And so we continued, and we all thought together. I was doing more of the local and moving it forward because actually I was more or less born in the Camargue, and this is what makes me feel. I don't really like the term of entitled because I'm still a foreigner in Arles, as I was born in Switzerland and 2 weeks old when I arrived in Arles and the Camargue. So what I mean is that I was really also supported by all the local people who, like me, were growing into wanting to take responsibility and changing things. It changed. That's why do I say that? Because the town has really changed, actually. I knew it before, but I got involved only with 40, and I sometimes have the feeling what Sheikha Al Mayassa started with 20, I started with 40, so I have to really keep fit if I want to go all the way.
You're fitter than me, don't worry.
Yeah. And so all of this together has really had an impact on the town. I must say there are two things, two precursors to my project. One is the natural reserves of the wetlands of the Camargue, which is the delta of the Rhone River. And these are very important because the wetlands are the future of humanity. And these are also the reason why I work with Sharjah, and I've been to Abu Dhabi, and I've been also here speaking about this natural environment, and also the reason why I created the Atelier Luma, which is a design lab based on natural resources that exist locally in the bioregion and that we transform into materials that can be used for construction, that can be used all over the place. And I'm happy to just report that lately all the governmental instances in France and in Europe are also starting to want to use this material. So it's not only the artists for their own work, it is also construction, it is also doing things a little different, seeing that our planet is transforming very fast. There is a sustainability element in this. So that's the first reason why I wanted to do this project in Arles, and I grew up there. And now I have to stop now, or can I speak? No, I mean, because of the outside voice.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Now, the other thing is the Rencontre de la Photographie, the International Festival of Photography, that has been developing, and I've been watching this from very close. I was like, this is where I was 20 when it started, right? And supporting it, and I am on the board, and I was also the assistant of Lucien Clerc, who created it, and which grew also and made Arles, positioned Arles on the map of culture through photography, which is also a medium that has been in evolution ever since this Rencontre de la Photo started, and it all came together at some point. And I think, Hans, you wanted to ask me a question later about Frank Gehry, so we'll speak about that later. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Maja. Thanks a lot. The next big round of applause. Next question, you've already answered my next question in a way, which is about the artist-centered approach. Her Excellency Sheikha Al Mayassa talked about while being the director of an art school here, a residency, at the same time the director of the art fair. And you have also involved artists from the very beginning, as you mentioned, in the core group, but you've even invited with Jorge Pato an artist to design hotels. So I think very fascinating, this very artist-centered approach. But I wanted to ask you about collecting, because in the context here of an art fair, I think it's interesting to focus on that question. And the question of collecting and new ways of collecting and how that has evolved over time, because you early on collected photography with a very strong ecological focus. It all began with Ansel Adams. But you then started to not only collect works, but also commission a lot of works and do projects with artists, such, for example, Philippe Pareno, where every single artwork the artist has ever done is at Luma Archives. Can you talk a little bit about your approach to collecting and how it changed over time?
Yeah, collecting. My grandmother was a collector, and when her husband passed away, she opened a foundation and she gave the collection to Basel, to the town of Basel. This was way before the art fair was even existing, or more or less at the same time. Also when Bayer Museum was being thought, and so this is also a story of an ecosystem. When I think about collecting, I think about Basel. When I think about commissioning, I have to mention the fact that our program that we now do in Arles, which is our biggest project of the Luma Foundation, which is also located in Zurich, and with links to Basel, and with this big project in Arles, this is based on commissioning artists. And for this we have our artistic director who is here today, but I don't know where he's standing, Vasilis. And we have also the team of Christophe Danzin and Mustafa Bouayati, who will come for the design biennial here, I think in a few months. So we commission, we base our reflections on the residencies that we offer to the people. So we have either the artists stay for a long time to prepare an exhibition, like Wael Shoki did for the exhibition last summer, or we take residents, and next summer we will show work by artists who have been staying with us for 3 months. That's more or less what it is. So the ecosystem, like you say, it's feeding each other. If you have people who come and can stay for some time, the work they will produce will have more impact. It will have impact on the region, but it will also have impact internationally on the collectors' community. So I have one private collection where I like to buy women painters, actually, and to put it in the houses that we have. I like design. I was one of the first collectors mixing design with art, actually. And my collection is not at all specialized in photography. Really, I would not say that this has ever been a driver for me. When I wrote my small little thesis when I was at school, it was on photojournalism. So photojournalism is really what I found was so interesting in photography, and not really as, of course, it's a fantastic medium for artists, but it's not the way I position myself in my collection. So, and then we have, like I said, the exhibitions and the collection of permanent installations, and of which many are in the Frangheri Tower, now in Arles, and they are there for staying. It's a durational display and durational collection.
Thank you so much. And that leads us right away to a question I wanted to ask you both about urbanism. I always remember when I grew up in Switzerland, as a teenager, I read Lives of the Artists, Lives of the Architects of Vasari. And based on that, I made my first architect studio visit when I was 17 with Jacques Herzog. And in that very first meeting, Jacques Herzog explained to me museums are urbanism. So I wanted to ask Your Excellency about urbanism, because through major urban development, architecture projects, and also public art installation, there is a complete transformation of Doha and also of Lusail taking place. So I wanted to ask you to what extent you see art and architecture and cultural institutions as a form of urbanism shaping how cities are experienced and lived.
Thank you. I'm glad Jacques Herzog was your first mentor, because most of you might have seen the models of the Almaha Island, which actually we've been working on for almost 15 years with the development of the Lusail Museum, but with the whole ecosystem of how we can bring business and real estate and lifestyle into the collections, the roots of the collection and the identity of the collection, which is Orientalist painting. But also, since then, our thoughts have evolved to include a think tank that we actually have. Dean Masri, who's the Dean of Georgetown, I know he told me he's going to be here, I just don't see him. He's leading the think tank where we're partnering with institutions from all around the world to address the ideas of colonialism and post-colonialism and what that means for us, and how do we reclaim a regional identity that belongs to us, that we write, we narrate ourselves with our own voices and with our creatives. So, my story is not very different from Maya. I mean, I think you went to the Camargue when you're 2 weeks old because your father wanted to preserve the nature, and he used very much of what your father started in building Luma. I mean, I was very inspired when I saw the Luma building and how you recycled salt and material that you found in the Camargue into the building, and I thought that was so innovative of thinking about design that is functional but is rooted in ecology. My story is not very different. I came back from university thinking I'm going to be a foreign diplomat, and I landed in the Museum of Islamic Art project, which had some challenges which I had to address. So very soon after, I realized what my father was doing in terms of the cultural strategy and how important it was, not just as an architectural building and a collection, but what that would do to the whole ecosystem of our city and a whole economy. When Mr. Pei agreed to come to build, he pointed into the water, and my father said, "But that's water." He said, "Yes, I want to build an island." And so that's what happened. And that led to a number of cultural institutions. And shortly after, I decided to go do a master's in public administration, focused on urban policy and cultural development, to equip myself with the tools in order to realize the vision that was set upon us to deliver. And it was the crash course, because I had Richard Serra on one hand with the Sculpture 7 and IMP on the other hand, and we sat in intensive long meetings for weeks and months to realize what we now call the Museum of Islamic Art Park. And that whole urban redevelopment completely changed the relationship between park and building, and how people and communities would come to the park, maybe to play football or have a picnic, and suddenly realize there's something happening in the building, let's go. And over the time now, if you go to the museum any day of the week, it's bustling with families, international visitors, local communities, schools, university, etc. We have many faculty actually now teaching in these in our museums. So going back, so that was our first project, and the project that we're actually working on now, we have two important projects. The Mathaf campus, which is going to expand from a museum with a collection to a museum that actually produces works of art and invites artists through our creative visa to come and live and work in Qatar and produce works supporting the industrial area that we have. And Lusail Island, Al-Maha Island in Lusail, which is the Herzog de Meuron building. I could talk about the art mill as well, which will create a triangle between the National Museum of Qatar, the Museum of Islamic Art, and our bakery that will turn into the Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art. And that ecosystem will, enhance the economic growth and diversification, but also the knowledge that's available, because the diversity in the collections between these three institutions will no doubt inspire young people, amateurs, entrepreneurs to think outside the box and inform their next business.
Thank you so much. And that leads, thank you very much. And that leads, of course, Maja, to your work with urbanism. I always thought with Arles there is a total urban transformation, and that evolved out of your very close dialogue and friendship with Frank Gehry, also with Annabelle Seldorf. Can you tell us more about this?
The choice of the architects.
Transformation of the whole city, which came through that.
Arles is a Roman city which has incredible treasures in old Roman stones, and a museum that is showing it. Arles is also a town where you have the spirit of Van Gogh, which is still around, and some Romanesque architecture and the spirit of Van Gogh. And Arles is also a town that was a little forgotten on the delta of the Rhone River, which is one of the four big rivers in France, and the Rhone is opening up to the Mediterranean Sea, and this is where this institute I was speaking about before, where I grew up, which was outside of the old town, was taking place. Arles is a small village, but it is the biggest commune in France, in the country of France. Territorially, I mean, on the surface. But there are lesser inhabitants, of course, than in a big town. So all this mingled together is also bringing us, the Rhone River is actually born in Switzerland. After you start thinking, you find all the right reasons why projects get. So the Swiss is like flowing into the Mediterranean, actually. And you have also the Alpi, which is a concretion, I mean, some alpine mountains from the prehistoric time, or I don't know, which are very reminiscent of other Mediterranean countries. And it is actually a haven for culture that you find there, with not so many difficulties like you may have when you arrive in the desert and you have to create everything from scratch. So that's really a gift, really an incredible environment. So I just thought the town was really falling asleep, except only for the summers when you have crowds and crowds of people coming, and they would more take from the town than give back. And the countryside where I grew up with the wetlands was really difficult of access and needed protection, which it has been protected, but also at the same time needed some opening through culture, because if it would stay only closed, it would not survive for many other reasons that we don't have the time to describe now, but one is too much development, the other would be too little development. So through culture, it's possible to open up the Camargue and to explain the importance that wetlands have, the dirty water, the brackish water. It's our future, right? And the way we can also develop, like we said with the Atelier Luma, the salt, the rice, the husks. We do not reuse things. We use things that have never been used and that would only be discarded if you don't use them. It's a little complicated without examples. There are a few, I think if you see, there are a few images that show transformed materials from nature that are going to get used for constructions, like I said before, but also for art, or that can be really saving part of the planet if you accept the word sustainability and want to be sustainable, which is really what I decided for me once forever that I want to be. So the town has been transforming because, of course, thanks to the choice of the architect, Frank Gehry, he is somebody who thinks out of the box, what you were saying before, but he's also very attacked because it was a time for star architects when he grew. So in 2008, of course, we were still thinking differently than after 2008, but we continued all the way with Frank, and he did a building that is more like a sculpture than it is like a real building. So the ground floor and the underground of our building is very sturdy, and it has white cubes, and it has all the surfaces that are needed for research and also for exhibition. And then the other floors, the one which emerge from the ground, they are very visible. So you can say, why do you want so visible? Why do you want to make a tower? I just believe, and I undersign twice, that Arles was needing some visibility and attracting some people. Otherwise, it was really going to, little by little, disappear. So what we were able to do is activate as much the lovers of the old stones and constructions, then the people interested in the future of the planet through the environment, and the artists and the artist thinking and design thinking that is really transformative, because it is also my belief that if we build up a society by integrating what artists think and give them the chance to define things instead of coming only in a second step, it is really going to create societies that are very interesting and much more able to survive to any crisis. Just also to say what we integrated from the environment into our campus, because it's a big campus now, not big in terms of Doha, which does very big things. We stay French or Swiss. It's the garden. We were able to bring, to change a completely barren and very hot environment. I don't know, I see there are a few images here that was really completely destroyed by the start of the 20th century. And we recreated a garden that is a green haven, and that I gave back to the town of Arles, because that was one of the promises. So people can go and take walks, and they can enjoy that. It was not existing before. And all the minerality of the town has been a little alleviated. And it is really, at the same time, without being didactic, it is really showing the weight of other ways of thinking what urban environment can be. So just to top up, now we have a lot of designers and artists who come, and also writers and translators who come to live in Arles. And I can only hope this will stay. It will depend on our mayor and what facilities he can create for newcomers.
Thank you so much. Now we began discussing the reinvention of an art fair. I wanted to kind of talk about and ask you both about the reinvention of another format, which is important right now, which is the reinvention of the model of the biennial, of which there are so many, and maybe it's a good moment to talk about Rubaya and about elevation. Maybe I wanted to ask Your Excellency first about Rubaya. It's a new art quadrennial, which is going to happen in November this year, so it will be a great occasion for all of us to come back to Doha. And you mentioned at DLD the other day that it was inspired by Documenta, so to find a different rhythm, not the fast rhythm of biennials, but give it more time to produce work. So I wanted to ask you to tell us more about this long-duration approach and the decision to make a quadriennial rather than a biennial, and just tell us more about Rubaya. That would be great.
Thank you. As you know, we're all about the long-term strategy and legacy. So Rubaiya was definitely, for me, influenced by my experience of visiting Documenta and really trying to understand what that did to Germany when it was divided, East and West Germany, during the Cold War. And when we won the World Cup, the bid to host the World Cup, we were severely bullied for no reason at all and for every reason you can imagine. And so we immediately thought, how can we use culture as a bridge to bring people together? We established what we call the Years of Culture. This year, we're celebrating Mexico and Canada because they're hosting the World Cup, and we will continue to keep it as one of our main legacies. And we felt that by bringing our culture to the world and bringing people's cultures here, we created a discourse that was absent in the political field, let's say, because the politics is very, very different than when you engage in cultural discourse. And after we had a successful World Cup, which everybody loved, and I think you will miss when you experience the World Cup this year, because of Qatar's, urban planning, infrastructure, and, people were watching 4 games a day. It's going to be impossible for any other country to do it, just simply because of the scale of Qatar. And I've been talking actually a lot about the World Cup. I think we're getting all nostalgic for that experience. And so after we won the World Cup, we said, how do we honor and celebrate the World Cup, because it was, if you remember the opening ceremony, the organizers of the Supreme Committee, led by His Highness Sheikh Tamim and His Highness Sheikh Jassim, insisted to put our local culture, our religion at the opening ceremony, because we're very proud of who we are. We're not intimidated by our belief system, and we welcome everybody at the same time. And I think that's very important to acknowledge. So what we decided to do is every 4 years, in memory of the opening of the World Cup, which is November 20th, 2022, we will open the quadrennial, which you mentioned, Rubaiya. This year, the theme is Unruly Waters. It's curated with, we have 5 curators in this quadrennial. It's led by Al-Anud Al-Thani. I think I saw her in the room, and Reem Al-Thani too. And we have the film that Wael is working on, the Gulf Cinema, and at the central of the theme is Qatar's trading route with the Silk Road, with the Serban wreck at the core of the narrative. People always say Qatar is 50 years old. Actually, it's not 50 years old. It's a very ancient civilization. We have over 9,000 archaeological sites across the country, going as old, from the Iron to the Stone Age to the Abbasid period, where it's all been here because we were a very important trading route. Al-Zubara, 18th century trading village, was used as a model for many other cities in the region thereafter. And so it's important for us to trace our past and claim it and share it with the rest of the world, but also show the connectivity that Qatar had historically and the importance role it has been playing in diplomacy and in the way it continues to mediate across geographies and topics around the world. And so the legacy is how Qatar is actually a country that enhances the quality of lives of all people, not just Qataris and the residents. And we celebrate that with the platform of inviting artists. We have over 60 artists being commissioned for this work. Some of them actually are going to start with the Sydney Biennale. I see Sheikha Al-Qasimi here, who is the curator of the Sydney. Welcome to Qatar. So, for us, it's all about connectivity. We're going to be in Sydney in March, right? And then maybe Kochi Biennale, I don't know if that's been confirmed. And then here in November, and you're all welcome to come. And Hans, you said something so important to me, and I stayed with me when we had our discussion in Munich recently. You said, nowhere in the world do you have 4 gatherings a year where we all want to come. And Qatar has done that, not intentionally necessarily, but we framed it around themes and ideas based on the initiatives we wanted to do to support the Arab talent in various industries. We have the Design Doha happening in April, where it's probably the only platform that's not a commercial platform, but enhances commercial activity in that we give talent from the region and design a platform to show off what they can do. And then the hospitality sector, the industry that's in the real estate and development, can find talent that they can then engage in their projects. Very similar to what Maja has done with the hotels in Luma, in Arles, sorry. And she's been very, very modest. If I had 24 hours in the south of France, I would choose going to Arles and visiting Luma over Saint-Tropez and the Croisette. She's done an incredible job.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. And Maja, maybe we can talk about elevation, because it connects beautifully to what Excellency said about this idea of connecting places, because Luma Arles does not only happen in Arles, Luma happens in many different places, and you have created this new type of structure, biennial, in the mountains. Initially, it began in Gstaad. Very often it has to do with artists doing projects outdoors. We saw earlier an image of the house, the mirroring house of Dr. Aitken. And now you're also going to connect it to the Engadine. So you're going to connect Gstaad and the Engadine. It would be great to hear more about elevation, and also just about the way, following what Excellency Sheikha Al Mayassa said about also Luma connecting places.
Well, whereas the biggest project of Luma is now really sedimented in Arles, the Luma Foundation has been for years before, 10 years before I started Arles, developing other projects, supporting institutions, supporting artists all over the world, and also hoping to bridge some knowledge, through knowledge, back to Switzerland, where we now have the Alps and the Alpine valleys are really very well known to not communicate with each other. We have 4 different languages. We also have difficulties in driving or crossing the valleys. So through art, we want to activate a little what also you did in Doha by having big public art installed in the desert. So these look spectacular, and at the same time, they allow us to gather people in through performances and living arts, and to speak about what the future of the Alps will be in Switzerland. So this worked very well in Gstaad and in the Sannenland, as we call it, because it's not really related to luxury, a little bit the same then it's another translation of your discourse, Sheikha, that we really we are interested in the content and not so much in what it looks like and for whom and for only a few happy fews. So we have this Gstaad and Sannenland, and I always wanted to bridge it to St. Moritz and the Engadin, because it's a region that is also very well known to have hosted writers, and more writers, I think, and philosophers than really painters. So actually, Gerhard Richter happened to love the place. He's arriving at a very respectable age. He does not travel there anymore, but we brought back one of his sculptures to the Engadin. We just opened it last week, and it's now going to stay for 5 years. We have 3 years, extensible to 5 years, and the hope also of the mayor of Sils Maria is to have it go all the way so that it becomes permanent. It's really a master example of what can be done, which is, and I know both worlds. I know the commercial world and of the art fairs, but this one is a foundation that is still owned and will continue to be owned by Gerhard Richter. And so the piece is not for acquiring, it is really for being publicly installed and seen by all. And I'm merely the facilitator of this. It's been produced by somebody else, by the foundation. I facilitate by putting it into a public place where it is hoped that over time, without using too much of only a big ado and big publicity, more and more people will see it. They will maybe just stop in front of the piece, and they will start to speak about also other matters. That's more or less the seed of what I want to create, and which we have created in Arles. I know it's all a little short time to try to explain everything, and maybe I go too much into details. But I really believe that we can change parts of our thinking by introducing actions like this. And this is what I really respect in the work you are doing here. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And we are running out of time. We clearly will need to one day do chapter 2 of this conversation, because there are so many more exciting questions we could raise. Of course, public art is relevant in what you both do, and I really hope you can all see, whilst you are here in Qatar, all the extraordinary public art commissions, which are all over the city. I have one last question. We have a few minutes left, and the only recurrent question in all my conversation is, as you know, the question about unrealized projects. And we know a lot about architects' unrealized projects because they publish them, but we do not know about unrealized projects in the art world otherwise much. And you've both realized so many extraordinary projects as we could see today. I was wondering if you can tell us about a project which has not yet happened, a project which needs more time, maybe a project which was too big to be realized, or maybe a forgotten project, and unbuilt roads. Maybe we can start with Your Excellency Sheikha Al Mayassa with your unrealized project.
Thank you. Actually, I think any project that we don't deliver remains unrealized in my head until it's open. So currently we're building 4 museums and a school, and we still have a lot of public art commissions on the way. But I can share an example of Gerhard Richter, who we're also installing a pavilion this year. That almost became an unrealized project because it was very complicated and complex to realize. And as you know, it was a 10-year conversation, but it's in the making, and it will be open in November as part of our quadrennial initiative. But until 2 years ago, I didn't think this project was going to ever happen. We had a lot of differences with the approach, with the artists, but through multiple conversations and workshops and engagement, as Maja said, he's not a young artist, we finally came to a resolution. So I can't, unfortunately, I have to disappoint you. There's no project that's shelved because everything is in the making. I just don't know how long it's going to take. But hopefully soon we will realize all of the projects that are in the making. So thank you all for being here because I know our time is up. And Maja, you have the last word.
Unreal. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking all the time about what can be done more, and there is a lot of unrealized, of course. One of my wishes would be to realize projects with you. That would be quite amazing. And we are already in the discussion for different aspects of it. But I actually was working with Frank de Gehry, who recently passed away and who was a big friend, grew into one of my best friends, actually. It's really a mentor figure. I'm not positioning him in the world of architecture. I'm just speaking like very personally, very, very likable, and I really liked him very much. We were working after this tower, which was really transformative for so many people, for the city of Arles the most, on doing a concert hall. It's concert, performance, recording, and performance, conferences, concert, the most, all about music. So this is taking place inside of the shell of an old building, and Frank was coming back to his debut, a little like with the temporary contemporary that he did in LA. With very simple means, he designed something that was ready to go, and I was only wanting to change my mentality, my way of looking at things, looking for partners who would make that possible, because I think that collaborations are really the future, and we should do things, several people together, because the larger the platform that builds the founding of something, the better chance it has to survive over time. So we are ready to go, and we will do it, but it may take a lot of time, and I would like to give a homage to Frank for having given his time, of course not the time of his team, but his time to this project and to develop it together with us. So we'll see how it's going to happen, but this is one of my unrealized projects.
Thank you so much. I want to thank Your Excellency Sheikha Al Mayassa. I want to thank Maja Hoffmann. I want to thank you all for being here this morning. And please give them a very big round of applause.
Thank you, Hans. Thank you, Your Excellencies. Thank you, Maja. Thank you all for being here. This was a truly exceptional moment. I would like to invite you to come back at 3:15 for our next panel, Becoming as a State of Mind, with our artistic director, Wal Shawkey, the artist, Rachel White-Reid, moderated by our artistic director, Vincenzo De Bellis. Thank you very much. Thank you.